welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 75. And today's title of this episode is Bubbles, Bubbles, the Economic Collapse Bubble. And we'll see why we're calling this the major be-all, end-all of all bubbles. But let's get right into the economic collapse news. And basically, the Swiss banks forced to disclose U.S. client names in tax evasion disputes. Basically, like I said before, when we see the government adding more taxes onto the people, or even looking for those people that owe taxes and going outside of the country and forcing other countries to give up the names of these people, you know we are at the end game of this entire monetary system. I mean, they are looking everywhere and anywhere to get revenue to pay the debt, the interest on the debt, because what they're bringing in now in tax revenue is no way enough. And we have, right now we have 17 trillion approximately, we're getting very close, it's like almost 16.9 or so dollars worth of debt. So just think of the interest on that, and if the interest ticks up 2 or 3 to 3% or 4%, that's going to be an enormous payment, and there's no way with the tax revenue that they're bringing in right now we'll be able to cover this, because even though they tell us that the jobs are all coming back and everyone is making, and everyone the unemployment is going down, again, what type of jobs are these? What type of income are people bringing in? And just because you have a temporary job does not mean you have a full-time job making the same salary, producing and paying the same taxes that you did before. I'll give you an example. I know someone who had a very nice job. He was making about 140 or around that area, and now today can only find a job for $55,000. So this person that used to pay a lot more in taxes is no longer paying the same amount in taxes. And this goes with a lot of people. A lot of people have part-time jobs who are bringing in a lot less money, who's trimmed their lifestyle down to the bare bones of renting a small apartment, having one car, not going on vacations, not buying things on credit, and living very lean on just what they bring in, not spending anything, just food, electric, rent, and that's it. And maybe their car payment, and that is it, unless they owe their car. But most of the people across the country are starting to live like this. And the government, with their manipulated equations for unemployment, GDP, and inflation, does show the difference between the way it used to be and the way it is. And what I did was I put it together. I said, let me just see here. So if we look at the modified calculation, they're saying that unemployment is around 7.5% right now. But if we go back before they modified the calculation and we use the straight-up calculation that they used before, it's at 23%, the unemployment. Now let's look at inflation. Their modified calculation is telling us that there's only 1% inflation. The unmodified calculation is showing 5% inflation. GDP, the modified calculation, is showing 2% GDP. The unmodified calculation is negative 2%. So there is a very big difference when we talk about these numbers. And we're starting to see that these numbers, like the stock market numbers, the unemployment, GDP, inflation, all these things are completely meaningless because look at reality. Now, I keep track of food and oil, gas on the site, inflation, deflation, and I'm tracking this. And from the beginning, you can see prices went up, they came down a little bit, they're leveling off, and I'm going to update it again at the end of the month here. And compared to what it was just a few years ago, everything has gone up, or they are masking the products in size, giving you less but for the same amount of money. And it's very confusing to the public who is not looking at this because when something was a gallon and is no longer a gallon but costing the same amount, and you try to manipulate the way the package looks, it gives a very false representation and a false price of what something actually costs. For instance, ice cream. Breyers, for instance, there is no longer, you're not getting a gallon or a half gallon of ice cream. You're getting less. They made the cover bigger. The price is pretty much the same, or it went up a little bit. But you see this with many different products, and they're doing this a lot where they're shrinking things or giving you less or giving you one more less of something that you would have normally got 8 of, and now you're only getting 7. And this is how they're trying to control the inflation so you do not see it. Okay, let's move on here. Now, the EU extends deficit deadlines for most European countries. They admit that austerity is not working, and they had this debacle with this Excel spreadsheet that the calculations were off. But basically, they're extending everyone's deadline for like Poland to 2014, Slovenia to 2015, Portugal to 2015, Netherlands 2014, Spain 2016, and it goes on. And basically what this means is more debt, more debt, more debt, and this is the only way they know how to handle this. By cutting things and trying to reduce your debt, they realize they just can't do it. And instead, the people rather have a complete collapse than cutting back on things. Because think about, I mean, I live in America right here, but think about your own country, where you are, and the people who are not awake. They don't want their everyday lives to change. Can you imagine your neighbor who doesn't know anything, who's just going along on their credit card and spending and just going on their trips, and they got their job, they're still getting the same pay, all of a sudden saying you have to live on half the salary now. You do not have credit because now you have bad credit. People, most of the population will not be able to handle that. And when this collapse hits, and when it hits in different stages, people are going to have a very tough time handling this type of problem. People do not like change, especially the change when they have to change their lifestyle, especially when they look around and it's embarrassing when other people are looking at them going, what happened to them? It's very difficult for people to handle this, and this is when problems arise. So when the collapse comes, and when they do this in waves, maybe only, a quarter of the neighborhood you're living in might have a huge problem, and the other people might not, and not see anything. But those people will now be woken up because they're in the problem of not having a job, running out of money, and having to live on a lot less compared to those who are going about their daily lives like nothing has ever happened and can't understand why these people have a problems and why people say just go get a job. I mean, I was with someone driving in the car, and we see people on the side of the road, and it just breaks my heart when I see a mother and children and a father standing out saying, lost my job, lost our home, we have no place to go. please help, and I always try to please. I always, no matter what, I always try to help because think about if you were in that position. It's no fault of your own. It's no fault. I mean, it's the system is preventing people from getting jobs and from producing. And sometimes when you're in this situation, you find that there's no way out. And the person I was with in the car is like, look at these people, go get a job. But until you're in that situation, you don't know how hard it is to find a job when you don't have one, especially when there are very few jobs out there. And I'm not talking about the jobs making $5, $6, $7 an hour, because I hate to say it, unemployment pays more than that in most states. Um, so that it's not going to keep you in a place and keep your family going, especially when you have two, three, or four kids. I mean, it's very tough. But let's move on here. Now, there are many bubbles that are happening right now. There is the stock market bubble. We can see the market going up, but today it was down. Europe was down. Um, so we can see this fluctuation of the markets going way up one day, way down the next day. The treasury bond market is in a bubble, and the housing market is in a bubble. And I thought this was a very interesting thing where this article from Zero Hedge says, meanwhile, big investors quietly slip out of the back door on housing as stupid money jumps in. This is an incredible definition for bubbles, because what we always know about bubbles is those people get in at the bottom, they pump it up, and when the price rises, they start dumping. Now, a lot of the houses that are purchased right now are done from hedge funds, investments, investment companies trying to pump the market up, trying to make do with the rentals. And when the rental business doesn't work out for them and the market continually goes higher, they sell off to people who think that the real estate market is going up. And these people are the ones that always get creamed. My wife has a friend who said, oh my God, the housing market is hot. We need to get in. We need to flip some houses. And I'm just sitting here going, oh my God, no, we are not. We're not getting involved with this, because who knows when this thing is coming tumbling down. And you don't want to get stuck now at the mid-range of this housing bubble, and all of a sudden things collapse sooner than they thought. And and basically what this is what they're saying is that these hedge funds, investment companies, one of the big ones are Blackstone, and another one was, I'm going to try to, this hedge fund Och Ziff, called it quits on the landlord business. Um, saying that the amount of rents coming in is not covering their housing costs. So the housing market has gone up, so now they're getting rid of it and getting and selling it to those people who think the housing market is on fire. And this is just a huge pump and dump scheme, just like everything else that we see. Okay, let's move on here. Now, let's go to wars. The war drum is definitely banging all over right now. Israel preps for ballistic missile attack. Russia warplanes go on 24-hour duty in snap alert drill. Basically, Israel is saying that if you're shipping to Russia, if you're shipping any type of missiles to Syria, we have every right to shoot down your ships, or shoot the airplanes, or however they're being transported. Now, can you imagine if this happened the opposite way? If the U.S. was shipping weapons to Israel and the Syrian armed forces decided to shoot down that shipment, what do you think would happen? Everyone would say, oh, this is war, let's get into war. But it's okay for it to happen the other way. And these are short-range missiles to protect their country. And again, Syria and Iran have never been the aggressor in any war, and I know Iran has been back 200 years. So all of this stuff that is going on is pure propaganda, and the central banks, governments, have no way out of this economic collapse, and they need to hide this somehow with a new world war. Now, there was a video from Storm Cloud's Gathering saying that World War III has already begun, and it really has. We just haven't seen the full-fledged killing of many people and bomb runs and things like that, but we are pushing this. And again, if you look back in time in World War I, World War II, it really didn't happen overnight. It took many years for the war to ramp up, and this is being ramped up at an accelerated level. I mean, even John McCain was out there trying to fuel this World War III that's coming next. And even right now, the United States is provoking China into this war by accusing them of cyber attacks, of accusing them of stealing defense U.S. military weapon information. Now, let's really think about this. The United States military, okay, do you really think that someone can get through a web-based system through countless firewalls and safety mechanisms and get into the system to get this information? I mean, I worked for a financial institution, and I knew how many firewalls we had and how much security we had. You think that this person sitting in a room in China, of course, they know where all this is coming from, because this is how good they are, but they can't stop the spam coming into your mailbox because they don't know where that's coming from. But they know that it's coming from China, and they got through all of this security and pinpointed the exact plans that they need. This is what they're trying to convince us of. Basically, China has been building new and more advanced weapons, and the weapons that we have here in America are basically not up to snuff. Most of the stuff doesn't work. Most of it is terribly put together, and this is the problem. And if we do go to war, our troops, our equipment is so run down, just like the infrastructure of America, that I don't know if America will actually be able to win a war. And they're trying to push. Again, you have to remember, the central bankers, they don't care who wins. It makes no difference to them. As long as they can set up their central banks and loan this money at interest to governments and to the people. So they can give two rats' ass which country wins or loses. It makes no difference. They are not loyal to any country. Now, let's move on here. Carroll County nullifies Maryland gun control legislation with the Second Amendment Preservation Act. Now, there is a county that finally came out and said, that this law that was passed is completely against the Second Amendment, and now they can have concealed carry, open carry in Carroll County when they passed the resolution 884-20013, and this is a great, great thing because the Second Amendment, and they didn't have to pass anything because all these laws are void and null when it comes to the Second Amendment. Basically, and I'll say this, I've said this many times, the right to bear arms, bear meaning to carry, and arms meaning ammunition, weapons, armament, which armament means the same weapons that the military has, shall not be infringed upon, and infringe means to limit or undermine or encroach on. So if you just substitute those words, you'll see what the Second Amendment really says. Now, we've been seeing this a lot here in America, and I noticed this other article, Scotland to impose state guardian on every child. You do not own your children. They keep telling us that our children are not ours. They belong to the system. And in Scotland, every child in Scotland is to be assigned a state minder from birth under draconian new proposals that would enable the government to spy on families under the justification of preventing child abuse. And basically, they're keeping tabs of all the children. They're continually letting us know that the children are not yours. They belong to the system. So when they need your children, they can just take them. And this is asinine. No child belongs to the state or to the federal government or to any country. We, as a people, are free, and we have the rights behind us that tell us this. Now, we also see that in England, here in America, and now in France, that they're trying to promote this radical Islamic type of thing where they want to get people riled up so they can push the war forward in Syria and in Iran, and they continually do this with the killing, supposedly the killing in or the cutting or the axing of a soldier in England, and this French soldier stabbing, and they keep blaming, and the Boston bombing with this Islamic Muslim type of propaganda to get people riled up, but it's really not working. Many of the people don't really care. These false flag things are really messed up, and you can see other people taking video shots and things don't make sense, and they're just doing a really bad job trying to push this through, and every time they try, it gets worse and worse. And you have to remember, in today's world, everybody has a camera, everybody has a phone, we have the internet, and this is why they want to get rid of the internet. I mean, not get rid of it in that sense, but to control it, to block all these people out. This is why they want, when something happens like the Boston event, that's why they wanted everyone to hand in their photos to help them. They didn't need any help. They knew who they were blaming this on. But this is what they're scared about. And this is why the DHS here has a mobile kill button. And this is why in all the cell phones, in the episodes, a couple episodes back, I reported on that they want to put a kill switch in all cell phones. And again, this is for the protection of the people so they don't trigger any bombs. But, to put a kill switch in a cell phone is easy. Once you get a new update in your cell phone, you have the software kill switch where they can just activate it and your phone dies down. Nobody can take pictures, because what they realized with the mobile kill switch that they used in Boston is that people were still able to take pictures. And that was a problem. And when they turned the mobile system back on, everyone was allowed to send them. Now, if they have a complete shutdown of your phone, this will be better for them. No one will be able to take pictures. None of this will be on the internet. And if they can get these internet laws passed, they can shut down any site they want and just say this is a terrorist site and you can't look at it. Now, on other news with false flags, Kokesh canceled the march on Washington, but is still continually having people march on all the capitals in all the states throughout the country. You can go with loaded weapons or not, but he will not be marching. So this is still a very strange thing that he wants to continually happen, and he's not even going to be there. But he keeps changing things, so we're just going to have to keep an eye on this. But again, the the government, central bankers need some type of event to get the pending gun legislation and UN arms treaty passed in the Senate. And the only way to do this is to have some type of an event, something to happen where they can say, see, we told you. And it has to be worse than it was in Sandy Hook. I mean, that was bad. People were very upset about it, outraged, and they did make a push into passing these gun bills, and they had some states go through with some gun laws, but the next one has to be worse. It has to be horrific. A lot more people have to die. They really have to pound this message into all Americans so they get it and they get their bills passed. So this will be a really, really big event, and it will be tragic. Now, they can still pull this off because even if Kokesh telling people all across the country, gun owners, to march on their state capitals, just think of what they can do. DHS can be waiting for them, state and local officials can be waiting for them, and this can be a countrywide false flag shootout where many people die. They can say gun owners are bad, gun owners are crazy, and they can get these bills passed in the Senate. So we're going to really have to watch this and see how this turns out. Now, as you know, that everyone needs to be prepared because we know this collapse is coming and everything is accelerating. The wars are being accelerated. More propaganda is coming out. The stock market is reaching all-time new highs. It's down today a little, around 100 points or so. Let me see if they try to pump this baby back up with all their high-frequency trades. No, it looks like they got it only to down 106 points. Gold is up, and basically they're trying to bring this baby up to as high as they can get it before they pull the rug out from under it. But we all need to be prepared because we know what's coming. And not just prepared in gold and silver. I mean, a lot of people say that, yes, you do need gold and silver. But, when I talk about false flags, cyber attacks to get us into war, and the cyber attacks also to shut the power off, to declare martial law, you're going to need to have food and water. And on this page, I have increasing your odds of survival. It was an article. And it makes you think of all the things you say, like water. Most people can survive for a number of weeks without food, but without water, you'll die in just a few days. So make sure you stock up on water. And it goes on to say that you can get water purification tablets. I have them. They're really cheap on Amazon. It takes water, and you throw a tablet in, and it purifies the water. They're not expensive. And you can do this. And also it goes on to say food. Most families could not last longer than a month on what they have in their house right now. When the economic collapse comes, how long could you survive on what you have? I'm going to tell you, they're saying a month. I'm going to say most people eat out today or don't cook at all, and maybe they have food for about a week. I don't even think people have more than that. I do not go out to eat very often. First of all, I am a health nut. With my wife and my children, we do not eat any processed foods. We do not eat any food that has chemicals, or I do not know where these foods, when you read a label, I only look for actual food in the food. So most of the stuff we make from scratch. We try to buy mostly organic. And I noticed that my children are the thinnest in their classes because what people don't understand is when you eat foods with chemicals in it, it is like taking a drug. And the food, the chemicals in there, and when people say, well, what do you mean by chemicals? When you read the back labels of any food label, if you can't pronounce it and you don't know what it is, it's not food. Because most of the stuff on the shelves today are all chemically altered or added chemically to create these foods. And what happens is it goes to your brain and it makes you crave more of that type of food. Secondly, the chemicals in your body doesn't know what to do with them. It doesn't know how to break it down. And what happens is your body starts to store these chemicals which turn into fat. And if you look at the children of today, and even adults who eat this type of food, and all you have to go in the store, anything that's boxed, just read the label. Even cereals, read the label. Most of it is not food. And this is why we're having a problem in America. It's so simple, but everyone is addressing the wrong problems. It's the food. You can eat these foods and exercise as much as you can, and you will not lose weight. Most of the people today eat chemically modified foods, and their body stores it, and you get heavier and heavier, and you crave it more and more. You'd be surprised if you come off. I'll give you an example. Let's take bread, for example. I make my own bread. These are the ingredients in the bread. Whole wheat flour. I use 2 3/4 tablespoons of butter. I use agave nectar, yeast, and salt and water. 6 ingredients. I can make a loaf of bread. It's all it takes. And I use organic whole wheat flour, by the way. And it takes 4 hours to make the bread. But once you mix it up, it takes 4 hours for it to rise and to bake. And if you take what I just said, go to your supermarket and look at bread. Let me know how many chemicals are in that loaf of bread. And you can comment on the X22. I know I'm getting off the subject, but when it comes to food, we all have to start using our brain and start eating healthier. And actually, I hate to say this, do you know it's cheaper to make your own stuff than it is to buy that loaf of bread? I can make each loaf of bread for about 85 cents. You go there, what are you spending? $2, $3, $4, depending what loaf you're getting. So it's cheaper to make your own food from scratch, actually. And there's another benefit to it. Since we got off of all this chemically altered food, my children, myself, and my wife hardly get sick. We hardly get a cold. We hardly get sick. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I had a cold. We do not get the flu shot. So this is just my little rant right here on food and nutrition. And if anybody wants to comment on this or email me, I can let you know what I do. And again, we did this about 6, 7 years ago, and let me tell you, when you break free of it, your life and the way you feel is so much better. Now, the German finance minister warns of a revolution. Basically, what they're saying is that, with the let the austerity backlash begin. Who knew that an Excel error could cause so much social strife? Granted, common sense would have got you there, but this is politics. German finance minister warned on Tuesday that unless Europe wins the battle against youth unemployment, revolution is a distinct possibility. Well, let me just say, these European nations, the youth unemployment, and even here in America, is very high. We're talking 40, 50, 60, 70%. And when people are unemployed, and when people have no food, and when people have no jobs, and don't see any way out of it, and you back these people into a corner, you're going to see some type of uprising. You see it all the time. You see it in history, and you will always see it. Um, and we are going to see it. So, okay. Now, I want everyone to get prepared because we are getting closer and closer to this mini crash that I think is going to happen, because I really do believe they're going to let this down in stages. And I know there's a lot of things happening with Basel III coming this fall. Um, the Japan is teetering, and they're saying this is the first domino to fall, and then it's going to spread across Europe. But I believe they're going to take steps ahead of time to, just like they do all the time, they don't do everything at once. They rather ease us into it so people are none the wiser of what's really happening. And I believe they're going to try to um, take people's monies. They're already started taking people's pensions, and if you haven't started to prepare right now, you need to start to prepare with food and water, and also gold and silver. Um, so listen, everyone. I really appreciate you listening to me. I want to thank everyone, and thank everyone for all their emails that you send. I try to reach out and answer everyone's emails. I'm getting more and more every day, so it's taking me longer and longer to respond. But I really appreciate everyone listening, and thank you. What I'm going to try to do uh, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to make some calls to see if I can get some experts on here, like investment experts, where I can interview them. And I will first do my report in the beginning, and then the second part, I will interview them, and I'm going to try to get that going. But again, everyone, be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.